Hello and welcome back to the Second Take Podcast. My name is Calvin Williams. I'm here with my co-host Marco Rogers, and today we have a college basketball special for you. We're going to start it off with our bracketology / recap from the last week. We're kind of packing that all into one segment. And then a brand new segment, we're going to be grading different teams on the bubble, giving them like a report card type thing, and we're just going to see where they're at going into March, and then we'll finish it off with just a couple predictions to get you going for the week. So Marco, can you start us off with our one seeds and our bracketology? I know not much has changed, but definitely get us going there.
Yeah, so our number one overall seed in this bracketology is Alabama. Still few off the court issues with Brandon Miller, but I assume that will not happen this season. So not much has changed for them. The number two team in the country, the second number one seed, Houston. I don't think those two are going to change. I think they're both going to win their conference tournaments. Number three, Kansas. Well, the third number one overall seed. They played pretty well in the last week, so they've been they're in a good spot. And fourth, UCLA, the fourth number one seed. They beat Colorado, clinched the Pac-12 regular season. They have a big game this week, but as of right now, we have them as a one seed.
Yeah, and just one thing I want to say about Kansas, they do have quite a few losses. They also have the most quad one wins out of any team in the country. So it's really not a surprise to see them at the one spot. Just so you guys know, we're going to be moving a little quicker through this bracketology segment since we did do it a couple weeks ago. So next up, we have Baylor, a team that's playing at the two seeds. We have Baylor as our first two seed. Baylor is a team that's been playing very well. Even though Keontae George is hurt, Adam Flagler has been playing very well. It's a very good team in Baylor. Next up, we have Kansas State. Kansas State, super solid team coming out of the Big 12. They've been getting a lot of quality wins recently, including one over... I'm not remembering all of them, but they definitely got one over West Virginia the other night. Just a super good team there in Kansas State. Next up, we have Purdue coming out of the Big Ten, the top seed in the Big Ten. They just clinched the regular season there. No surprise. I still don't think they're going to go very far in the tournament, but definitely I'd say almost a lock at the two seed. And then our final two seed, Marquette, a team that's been playing absolutely phenomenal. I think this team's going to make a run. I think Marquette is a super good team. Like, if you watch them play, they play super well as a team, play good defense. They're hitting shots right now. Just a really good all-around Marquette team right there. Marco?
Yeah, Marquette's definitely been playing lots of good basketball. A very well-balanced team. I'd like to see them play well in March. For the three seeds, the first three seed is Texas. They did lose at Baylor by pretty good margin, 9, but they also did beat number 23 Iowa State by 20. So not an awful week for them, but not a very good week either. Next up, Arizona. We all know what happened to them. That tragic loss against Arizona State. The game was pretty much over until the 60-foot shot that just shocked the whole state of Arizona. Some got happy, some got sad, but that was just an incredible shot and tough to see Arizona lose that way. But they are a 3 seed and they should not have played that game that close. Number 3, Tennessee, the best defensive team in the country. Awful offensive team. I think this team could get upset maybe even in the first round due to their lack of offense. And next up, Gonzaga. They beat St. Mary's, that was sort of their first win that sort of proved that they're actually a pretty good team to me since really early on in the season. So they really needed that win, and I think they deserve to be a 3 seed.
Yep. And then next up, we have the 4 seeds. Started off with UConn. UConn's a team that's actually been playing very well. Excluding a loss to Creighton, they've been rolling. They beat a Marquette team that we were just talking about. It's a super good team. It's one of Marquette's few losses. UConn kind of dominated in that game, won by 15. They recently got a win over Seton Hall, who's not terrible. And then they also beat Providence, who's a very good team. So this UConn team is definitely deserving of this number 4 spot, and I could even see them jumping up very soon. And then next up we have Virginia. No surprise here. This Virginia team is definitely at a tipping point. They could jump up, or I could even see them staying at the 4 seed or dropping further down. Fortunately for Virginia, I see them getting a couple wins and finishing out the season strong, but a recent loss to UNC was not great for them, because UNC is not a great team, so they're gonna have to turn around, but still a very solid team there in Virginia. Next up we have Xavier at the 4th spot. Xavier's a team that has been playing all right. I don't have much to say about them. They've won 2 out of their last 4, lost to Marquette, lost to Villanova, who's actually playing very well right now. And they got a win over Seton Hall. So they have a chance to beat Providence coming up, but they're going to need to finish out the season strong if they're going to keep the spot. And then our final 4 seed, Miami. Miami's not playing their best basketball right now, but I could definitely see them being all right and keeping this 4 spot. Marco?
Yeah, Miami just had a completely embarrassing loss to Florida State, so they definitely need to improve. And I think that they can bounce back. They're a very experienced roster, but I still expect better from them.
Yeah, one more thing I want to say. I mean, like I did say they're not playing great right now, which they aren't. I mean, they just lost to Florida State. It's not good. But they were on a very good winning streak before that. So, I mean, this is a Miami team that was hot coming into that game. They only have 6 losses on the entire season. So this is definitely a very solid team still.
Yeah, Miami definitely still a good team, but yeah. Our first 5 seeds, St. Mary's, lost to Gonzaga. Not great, but they're still not a bad team. I don't see them moving. I think they'll probably lose in the championship against Gonzaga in their conference tournament. Next up, San Diego State. They needed a crazy buzzer beater to beat New Mexico, who's not really that good, but San Diego State still a good team, so I see them could make a run at it in the tournament. Next up, TCU. They've been pretty meh recently. Have a big game next week against Texas, but they haven't been great. Next up, Indiana. They win at number 5 Purdue, but they just got blown out by Iowa. That game ended like 20 minutes ago, so they're going to have to bounce back against Michigan if they want to keep their spot as a top 4 seed.
Yep, and then next up we have the 6th seed starting off against Kentucky, a team that was actually started hot, then had a slow streak, but they're playing really well again, definitely deserving of the 6th spot. Providence, the number 20 ranked team in the country, recently had that loss to UConn like we just talked about, but this is still a very good Providence team, and I think they can like maybe make a run, but definitely prove why they're ranked so highly. And then we have Creighton. They've lost a couple games recently. They're ranked number 23 in the country. They did lose. They beat UConn, which is a very good win, a team we were just talking about, actually. But then they also just lost to Marquette and Villanova, which are not great losses. And they lost to Providence, just further proving why Providence is a good team. And then finally, we have Maryland coming out of the Big Ten. They've gotten a couple good wins. They're starting to roll again, so definitely a good Maryland team there. Marco?
Yeah, definitely some pretty decent teams that succeed, especially teams like Kentucky, but I still need some of those teams to sort of prove a little more. Next up, 7 seeds, Iowa, coming off a big win. Well, first of all, a crazy win against MSU. We'll talk about that game later when we talk about MSU. And then it just killed Iowa on the road. I'm very impressed with the way killed Indiana on the road. I'm very impressed with the way Iowa's playing. Then Iowa State as a 7 seed. They've not been playing very good basketball. This team, some are saying is a bubble team. I still think they're up here due to what they were doing earlier in the season, but they really need to prove something to me right now. Next up, Duke. They just beat NC State a few minutes ago, so I think 7 seed's pretty decent for them. And our final 7 seed, Texas A&M. I think that 8 people overranked them a bit, but they're still a solid team.
Yeah, and then we have the 8 seed starting off with Northwestern, a team not playing great right now. They did before their 2 recent losses to Illinois and Maryland, they did beat Purdue and Indiana in back-to-back games, and Iowa that we were just talking about's been playing very well. But those Purdue and Indiana wins are very good, but also 2 recent losses to Illinois and Maryland are not good losses for a team that's trying to make a push for a higher seed in the tournament. So definitely a cold team right now, but chance to do something in the Big Ten tournament. And then we have Michigan State, a team that I haven't really thought's that solid all year, but they have gotten enough wins to get to this spot. And then we have Arkansas and Missouri in our last 2 spots, 2 teams that have just had pretty average seasons, which is what you see around this seed. Marco?
That's it for bracketology. Now moving on to team grades for just bubble teams. I'll start it out. First bubble team is Auburn. They were not a bubble team earlier in the year. Actually, they were ranked just a couple weeks ago, but they had a little bit of a bad stretch before these last 4 games. But in these last 4 games, they are 2-2. They had a close loss to Vandy, who's another team sort of in the bubble area, and then they got destroyed by Kentucky. But Kentucky's a 6 seed in our opinion, and Kentucky's been playing good basketball. They end the season with number 2 Alabama and number 12 Tennessee. So they have 2 very big opportunities. I think if they win one of those games, they are a tournament lock. But if they lose both and do bad in the SEC tournament, things could get sketchy for them. But our grade for them this week is a C+. Not great, not bad.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Auburn just sort of one of those teams that needs to pick it up to lock that tournament spot. Next up, we have West Virginia, another bubble team. Their last 4 games, they've gone 2-2. They had close losses to Kansas State and Texas Tech. Sorry. Close losses to Kansas and Texas Tech. The Kansas loss, not bad at all. It was actually a very close game. Texas Tech is an okay team, but definitely not a team you want to be losing to when you're on the bubble. And then they got a good win over Oklahoma State and a good win over Iowa State. So for this week, we gave them a B-.
Oh, yeah, definitely a decent team there. Next up, Wisconsin. Their last 4 games, they've been 2-2. They split with Michigan. They beat Michigan at home in a pretty sketchy game. Then close loss to Rutgers, and they beat Iowa. So they lose to Michigan, beat Michigan, lose to Rutgers, beat Iowa. Iowa looking like a good win. Rutgers, not a great loss. So very average week for them. But we'll give them a B due to that win against Iowa. It looks a lot better after what Iowa just did tonight with that win against Indiana.
Yep, and then next up we have Arizona State. In their last 4 games, they're 3-1. They've sort of been like a little streaky. They're sort of like win 4, lose 4, win 3, lose 3, win 2, lose 2. They started off the season very well. Only 1 loss in their first 14 or 15 games. But then as their conference play picked up, they definitely picked up a few losses to teams like UCLA. But then recently they got a win over Arizona, which is absolutely huge. One thing I will say, even though they are 3-1, in the last 4, they only beat a terrible Cal team, and that was by 8 in overtime. So that's a close game to a really, really bad team. I think they're 3-22. And then they lost and then they lost to Colorado and then beat Utah and Arizona. Arizona, obviously, a super good win. Utah is a very solid win. So for this grade, for this week, we gave them a B+. I think that Cal close game definitely cannot be overlooked, though, because that is not a great win. Marco?
Yeah, definitely. Not the best. Not a bad week by any means for Arizona State with that crazy win against Arizona, but still that win against Cal does not look very good. I don't think the tournament really takes into consideration how much you beat bad teams by, but maybe if you're really on the brink of a bubble, it's down to you and another team. They might take that into consideration. Next up, Mississippi State. Their last 4 games, they're 2-2. They've been very streaky this year since they started 11-0. Then their next 9 games, they went 1-8. But then following those 20 games up, they are now 7-2 in their last 9 games. In their last 4, they lost close to Missouri and Kentucky. We have Missouri as an 8 seed, Kentucky as a 6 seed, 2 decent losses. Then they beat Ole Miss, easy win, and they beat Texas A&M, which is a very good win. So our grade for them this week is a B-.
Yeah, definitely a really streaky team there in Mississippi State. Next up, we have UNC. They're 3-1 in their last 4. Their loss came to number 23 at the time, NC State. Then they picked up a win over Notre Dame, which is like not a great win, but it's a win nonetheless. And then they picked up a super good win over Virginia, who's ranked number 6, and then they beat Florida State. So this week we gave them an A-, just because of that win over Virginia, looking super good. And I think if they can pick up maybe 1 or 2 wins, they're basically a lock for the tournament. Marco?
Yeah, definitely another team that sort of has good opportunity with the ACC tournament and stuff, but still, they're going to need some wins. Next up, Oklahoma State. Their last 4 games have been quite miserable. They're 0-4 in the last 4 games. Losses, though, are to all good teams. They're on a 5-game losing streak. The losses of the last 4 games have been at TCU. The loss of their last 5 games have been at TCU, West Virginia, Kansas State, Baylor, and Kansas. Those are 4 good teams. West Virginia is not that good of a team, a fellow bubble team that they cannot afford to lose to. So they're going to need to really pick it up coming down to the Big 12 tournament, maybe win a couple games there, finish out the season with a few wins, and maybe they can be back in business and as a at least first 4 team.
Yeah, Oklahoma State definitely needs to pick it up towards the end of the season. And then finally, we have Michigan. In the last 4 games, they're 3-1. They've won 6 of their last 8, with their only losses being to number 15 Indiana in an absolute stunner at home. And then they lost to a pretty controversial game at Wisconsin, who they also beat later in the week, and a couple good wins in Northwestern and at Rutgers. So for this week, we gave them an A-. That 3-1 record looks really good, and they're just really on a roll right now. If they can keep going, I think they can definitely secure a spot in the tournament, but they have to beat Illinois and Indiana, maybe just one out of the 2, and then a couple wins in the tournament, but they definitely have to win at least one of those 2 coming up. So, Marco, you want to take what we got next?
Well, first up to talk about Michigan. First of all, that Hunter Dickinson shot was just incredible. Probably saved the season. And I think Michigan's key is sort of get to 3 more wins this year. Whether it's I think if we win both games in the regular season, we're probably in. But if we win only one of them, most likely if we win only one of them, we're probably going to have to win 2 in the Big Ten tournament. If we lose both of them, we'll probably have to win 3 in the Big Ten tournament. So I think that sort of 3 wins, unless we win both in the regular season, is probably the key. For our weekly predictions, first up, Michigan at Illinois. Definitely going to be a tough game. Illinois, a very, very talented team with Terrence Shannon, Sky Clark, Michael Mayer. Definitely a very talented team. Going to be a tough game for us. I think it's going to come down to the wire completely. Illinois tends to give us problems, so it's just going to really come down to who can make the big play. And Michigan has not done that a lot this year, but more recently we have been doing that, so I think we just barely get the edge here over Illinois.
Yeah, definitely a must-win game for Michigan, as is every game coming down the stretch. But Illinois at the start of the year, they looked almost untouchable in those in those early season tournaments. They got a win over UCLA. They looked absolutely massive, but I don't know. They've kind of shrunk a little bit, in my opinion, during Big Ten play, literally and figuratively. They almost seem like a shorter team in a funny way. And I think Michigan I don't know, they've just been playing really well right now, getting some good guard play out of Doug McDaniel. I think there's a chance we have Jet Howard back, which would be very big. If he can learn to, if Doug McDaniel and Kobe Buff can continue to produce how they have been without him playing, and then just to bolster the shooting with Jet, I just think we're going to be super dangerous if he comes back. Marco?
Yeah, I think Jet has to be more of just like a shooter type of guy who once in a while does ISO, maybe when we just need a bucket late, rather than ISOing every time and that's his only play. I think he should be more of a shooter than a ISO guy who doesn't play defense. Next up, number 19, Xavier at number 20, Providence. Very, very big game here. We have Xavier as a 4 seed, Providence as a 6 seed, but that could definitely flip. If Providence wins this game, you could see those two spots flip. It is at Providence, though, so I'm going to give them the edge. I think they're just also just the more sound roster. I just really like the way that Providence has played this year, and I think that they'll get a big win.
Yeah, definitely both teams looking to secure a higher bid in the tournament. And then next up, we have number 9, Texas at number 22, TCU. Texas, one of the teams that we sort of marked as not playing great right now, not playing bad. But a win over TCU here would be absolutely crucial for them. And I think they're going to get it done. I think they're a much more talented team, obviously. But TCU has been playing very well, so this game could go either way, but I got Texas in a close one.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a tough game for both teams, but I will give the edge to Texas there. Next up, number 2, Bama. At number 24, Texas A&M. Texas A&M coming off a tough loss to Mississippi State. Mississippi State's not a bad team. They're on the bubble. But Texas A&M looking to bounce back against Bama. Arguably the best team in the country. In our opinion, they are. So give me Bama here. I think it'll be close, but not that close. I think Bama wins pretty comfortably.
I'd agree. I think Brandon Miller leading the Crimson Tide, I think they're just, I think they're honestly the best team in the country. When he's playing well, you don't see many freshmen playing like that. So, just super impressed by Alabama. But definitely you can't overlook Texas A&M, Wade Taylor IV, sophomore guard. He's been playing very well, averaging 16 points a game, a couple assists. I don't know, he's their leading scorer, and he's been knocking down shots, making plays. So I think if he's able to distribute the ball a little better, you can definitely get his team into a winnable position. But I do think Alabama's going to take this one. Marco?
Yeah, that game's definitely going to be big, but not quite as big as this game right here. Number 3, Kansas at number 9, Texas. Texas wins this game. I think they're a 1 seed. Kansas wins this game. I think they confirm themselves as a 1 seed. So it's sort of playing for the 1 seed. However, if Texas loses, if they lose close, I think they stay. So sort of not much to lose here for Texas. A little more to lose for Kansas. And this is very tough because it's the first game before the Big 12 tournament, which is the toughest conference. So both teams going to have to it's just going to be tough for both teams in general. But I will give the edge here to Texas. I think they sort of want this game more, and I think they'll get it. I think they might even be a little bit more talented with Marcus Carr. They have Hunter. Timmy Allen's a great player. I think Marcus Carr goes crazy, though, and he wins that matchup between him and Grady Dick, so give me Texas here.
I actually got Kansas in this one. Jalen Wilson, the junior forward, 6'8", averaging 19 a game. He's leading the team in rebounds and points. He's a super dominant player on the glass and with the ball in his hands. So super versatile player there. And Kansas is just battle tested, in my opinion. They have the most quad wins in all of Division I, and they've won 5 out of their last 5, whereas Texas has won 3 out of their last 5, with losses to both Baylor and Texas Tech. So Kansas definitely has a lot to lose here, but I think they're going to use it as motivation. I think they're going to get the job done. Marco?
Oh yeah, probably the game of the week right there. But also another top 10 matchup right here. Number 8 Arizona and number 4 UCLA. This game is completely being played for seeding. They will likely meet again in the Pac-12 tournament championship. But if Arizona wins, I think they move all the way up to a 1 seed, similar to that Texas game. If UCLA wins, I think they confirm their spot as a 1 seed for the tournament right here in the regular season. This game is very interesting. I'm not sure if UCLA really has a great answer in the post for Azuolas Tubelis, dropping 20 a game, 9 rebounds a game as well. Probably one of the best post bigs in all of college basketball. But UCLA does have Jaime Jaquez Jr. putting up 17 a game. He's a great player. I'm not sure if he's going to be guarding Tubelis. I completely doubt that, but that's definitely a great sort of great best player for each team. I think whichever one of those does better ends up winning the game. I actually think Hawkins will play better. He tends to play pretty well at home. I feel like compared to that on the road. And this game being at home, I think UCLA wins. I think Tiger Campbell, that connection with him and Hawkins is big, and give me UCLA here.
Yeah, I mean, Tubelis and Jaime Jaquez, obviously the two front runners for Pac-12 Player of the Year. I do think UCLA has the edge here, and although they don't have a post answer for Tubelis, I just think the defensive guard play in Jalen Clark and Tiger Campbell is really good. Jalen Clark is probably the best two-way player in the country, and that's what has led UCLA to so much success. And then Jaime Jaquez, National Player of the Year nominee. He's just absolutely phenomenal on the offensive side of the ball. His mid-range is absolutely money, and I think UCLA gets it done here. Marco?
Oh yeah, both of those games are going to be just huge, but this is the biggest game that we're going to be watching this weekend.
Wait, Marco, and one more thing. For the Arizona UCLA, I actually think this game matters barely matters in a way, just because I think the winner of the Pac-12 championship between the two teams is actually going to get the 1 seed. So this game probably will be negated a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think if one of these teams wins both of these games, then they're maybe the number 1 overall 1 seed. So it still has some meaning, but not quite as much meaning as you'd think a top 10 matchup would in March. Next up, our biggest game that we're going to be watching this week, Michigan at number 15, Indiana. If we lose to Illinois, this is the season. Unless we win the Big Ten tournament or do very well in the Big Ten tournament, it's going to come down to, can Hunter limit Tracy to under 25 points? Last game he couldn't. We lost by 1. Also, can we score 1 point in the last 5 minutes and 6 seconds? That could help a little too. But I think we're a much better team since then. That was only a couple weeks ago. But Doug McDaniel, the very next game, and from that game, from the MSU game to now, has completely changed. He's now looking like a guy that can give you 15 any night with pretty efficient shooting percentages. He's been a good guy to sort of run the offense. Kobe Buffkin's looking like he's actually considered to be a top 10 pick in the 2024 draft as of right now. He's been playing out of his mind. Dickinson's been playing a little better. Once we get Jet back, if Jet fits better as a team player rather than just ISO, I think Michigan's one of the most dangerous teams in the country right now if everyone keeps playing the same way that they are. I think we're going to beat Indiana. Indiana's not really that good. They just got killed by Iowa at home, which sort of shatters the theory that Assembly Hall is impossible to win at. I think we get this win. Actually, I think we're going to win probably 1 game this weekend, most likely. But I'm actually not as confident about the Illinois game as this one, so I think we're going to win this one, actually.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about Doug McDaniel, and he's probably averaging 8 points a game off of pick and roll mid-range pull-ups. He's so money coming off the screen, pulling up from mid-range. He gets his shot off quick. He even has a floater that he goes to every once in a while. And he's been making plays as a playmaker, making nice passes, getting the ball out to Kobe Buffkin. He's been ripping to the basket. That's why we've been so successful. So like you said, if we get Jet Howard back, I really want him to start playing more as a system player rather than as an individual. If he does that, I agree. I think we're a super dangerous team. But it's definitely going to be a mental thing for Jet when he comes back. Anything else for today, Marco?
Oh, no, definitely going to be an exciting week of college basketball heading into March, and we'll have an episode next week with bracketology. Well, our final bracketology.
Yeah, we'll do some predictions as Selection Sunday is coming right up. Thank you all for listening to the Second Take podcast. We will see you next week. Peace.
See ya.